Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the April 16th preliminary budget hearing of the Rockville Center Board of Education. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Emergency evacuation exits are located at either side in the back of the room. Any correspondence that can be posted has been posted outside. I'm going to turn it over at this time to our student board member, Ms. Kelly Mann.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I have a very, very quick report for you all today. I just wanted to quickly give a huge congrats to everybody who participated in the Spring Musical Chicago, and for everyone who came out to support the arts. We all appreciated it so much. And also just wanted to wish all of our spring sports teams good luck as they start up our season, so thank you.
Thank you, Callie. At this time, we will have an opportunity for students. Are there any students that would like to come and address the board this evening?
Don't get
Yep,
silly.
perfect.
You don't, we can hear you perfectly fine, okay?
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Lutz, and my address is 60 William Street. And this is my first time in a Board of Education meeting, a day after my 9th birthday. And they have some things to say. First, why do you want to make Stellar only 2 out of 6 days, but it's better being 3 out of 6 days? It helps fellow students to express our creativity. If there's less Stellar, there's less creativity in our minds. Second, why are you firing teachers because somehow the money is messed up? Why should they lose their jobs? They didn't make a mistake. And there is a great teacher in my classroom that is named Miss King. And she is really kind and is there to help one of us specifically, but she helps any kids who need it. And so, if you could spare her and other teachers like her, my school will be able to sustain the ability to help more students more of the time. So, please, don't change the Stellar schedule and don't fire teachers that help kids. This is my speech. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael.
Hi, my name is Harris Breen. I'm a senior, and I'm committed to Dartmouth College for the next 4 years, and I just wanted to take the time to speak on behalf of IB and my experiences with IB. Throughout my recruitment, every coach that I talked to always told me that IB was a great program. Admissions officers really liked it, and they thought like every student they've taken that has been an IB student has succeeded at Dartmouth. Additionally, I feel like Dartmouth is just very good at developing students. IB has done a great job of just making me more ready for Dartmouth, ready for the development that I'm going to go through there, through the challenges that I'll have to go through there as an athlete and a student. And I just feel that IB is integral to Southside. Students all benefit from it, and every student who chooses to take IB comes out better, more well-rounded, and just better prepared for life in general. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Harris.
Hi, my name is Josh Feigenbaum. I'm a senior here at Southside, and like Harris, I want to share a little bit about my experience as an IB diploma candidate here. So when I first elected to go this route, I was a little nervous because I heard about all the hard classes, and to no surprise, the classes were difficult. But it's all been in preparation for after high school. I'm not done with IB yet, but I've spoken with multiple graduates who have gotten the full IB diploma, and all of them have said the exact same thing. They said they felt more prepared in their first year of college due to the advanced curriculum and the need to learn to organize and manage their time while in high school. The one aspect that they highlighted were the internal assessment essays that we have to write for each IB class. IAs are an aspect unique only to the IB program that you don't get out of AP. With the amount of essays and write-ups required at the university level, the experience of writing over 5 IAs has completely prepared Southside students to study at the next level. At this stage, I'm proud of my many peers in the program for having successfully balanced this rigorous curriculum along with multiple extracurricular activities at Southside, such as clubs, varsity sports, and arts programs. The objective of Southside High School is to prepare students for life after high school, so they absolutely should not get rid of the most influential program in the district just to cut costs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Josh. Are there any other students that would like to speak to the board? Okay, thank you. Mr. Gavin, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Barry. Thank you to all of our students that came out and spoke so passionately. I want to assure our students that have already spoken about their programs and the impact of our teachers, that we are also recognize the impact of our teachers, how they work on these programs. And I was going to save one of the, in response to our students that were talking about the IB program, I was going to read one of the other pieces of feedback that we've gotten from a recent college graduate during my opportunity for superintendent, which is usually later in the meeting, but I think I'm going to read it now. So, to whom it may concern, we received this email. I am a proud graduate of Southside High School from the class of 2022. Currently, I am a senior political science student at Villanova University. Throughout the past few months, I've learned about the district's financial challenges. I am writing to urge that you reconsider abandoning the IB program at Southside High School, as I strongly believe that it has contributed to my academic success here at Villanova. Now, before, I do want to clarify, we are not recommending getting rid of the IB program. That has never once been a recommendation from my administration, not once. But she goes on and says, Villanova requires all students to take foundational courses, such as philosophy, ethics, and theology. When I began my freshman year, I was surprised at how easy it was for me to complete my homework assignments and papers. For example, many concepts that I learned about in my theory of knowledge class were reintroduced to me in philosophy and ethics. Additionally, I appreciated the interdisciplinary nature of the IB program. Based on the conversations with friends I have made at Villanova who only took AP classes in high school, I believe that the AP program does not operate in a similar manner. In college, interdisciplinary work has become routine for me, especially between my major, political science, and my minor, criminology. I believe that the IB program has given me an advantage over some of my peers at Villanova, and I am proud to have graduated from a high school with this curriculum. Sincerely, Liz Vopel, class of 22. So, in terms of the, see, some teachers are like, yeah, that's the one, all right. So, I just wanted to clarify, I know that there were some concerns that we were looking to get rid of the IB program. We are not. And as I've stated before, we have AP courses where AP courses make sense. But the core of our junior and senior experience for students in terms of advanced coursework is the IB program and the diploma program. And there are many teachers in here that make that diploma program really work really well for our students and prepare students in an outstanding way for life after high school. So I've been seated in many of the classrooms of the teachers here from the high school level, and I know how hard they prepare for those classes, and I know how hard the students work to achieve at the levels that they do. So I know that we've had some question about whether or not the IB program was worth the expense. I can tell you it is, and that's my recommendation there. And I do have actually an update on one of our AP classes as well. So just to show that we do have AP classes, we had an our AP Human Geography students welcome Mayor Murray, Deputy Mayor Baxley, Village Administrator Nancy Howard, and Building Superintendent O'Brien to discuss the impact of zoning laws on community development. The presentation was informative, the questions from our students were detailed, and the students shared ideas for the utilization of space here in Rockville Center at the old police station. Those ideas were creative and thought-provoking. I wish to thank our village officials and our AP Human Geography teachers for their time and their continued partnership. I also wanted to provide an update for our Summer ACE program. Our Summer ACE program already has 400 students registered this week, and some of our classes have already filled to capacity, but there are still plenty of classes available for our students in grades K to 8. Thank you to Mrs. Amy Abbey for assisting families with any of the issues during registration. Please visit our ELIO registration site for an updated list of classes, or contact our summer school principal, Mr. Keith Eckert, with any questions. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Gavin. Turning to the preliminary budget hearing portion, before I hand it over to Mr. Gavin and Ms. Rehak to walk us through tonight's budget presentation, I just want to explain a couple of things that have happened since our last meeting. Members of the board continue to look at this budget at every angle possible, listening to community feedback. Members of the board, since the last meeting, have met with members of the teachers union as well as the administrative union. And as a result of all of that collectively, we have made some slight adjustments in the proposed budget that we're going to present to the community tonight. So I'm going to ask Mr. Gavin and Ms. Rehak to walk us through that presentation. Then I'm going to open up the mic for any community members that have questions or feedback regarding that budget presentation and the proposed budget before we vote on adopting the proposed budget as a board. Okay, Mr. Gavin?
Thank you, President Barry. Tonight's presentation is for the budget for the board to consider adopting for the 26-27 school year. As we know, we have a challenging budget season, which has required reductions in staffing that, while financially necessary, are programmatically challenging. These staff reduction recommendations have been done to preserve and ensure that our programs for our students are in place. We will need to alter the way we deliver some of our programs, but we are not proposing eliminating any programs. Tonight's budget presentation is the 6th public presentation we've done on this budget. This budget reflects input from our Teachers Association, our Administrators Association, and our Board of Education, and of course, public comment, feedback during PTA or parent meetings, and emailed comments or questions or requests. Last meeting, we presented responses to many of the questions we received from the community, and since the last meeting, we have made a few adjustments in the budget since our last presentation, and we'll be detailing those this evening. So, the goal of our budget the goal of our budget is to make sure that it's aligned with our mission and prepares our students to strive for excellence, and support our outstanding programs, and is fiscally responsible and sustainable. Our budget process for 26-27, you can see that we had our tax levy calculation on January 29th. We had our February 12th. We had a request from the board to examine what it would look like if we exceeded the tax cap. We did an informational session on February 12th. On February 25th, we did our budget presentation on the revenue, capital, and administration components of the budget. On March 12th, we did our budget presentation on instruction, special education, PPS, special schools, instructional media, co-curricular activities, athletics, and arts. Our last meeting on March 26th, we did a budget presentation, which was a review of the revised budget of all components. And then tonight, we have our preliminary budget hearing. Our next meeting after this evening, where we talk about the budget, will be on May 7th, which will be our budget hearing. And on May 19th, we will have our annual election and budget vote. What are our essential budget challenges this year? First, our expenses are rising faster than our revenue. We've detailed several driving factors in terms of our expenses over the last few meetings. We have our structural costs, and what I mean by that is that with some of our small elementary schools, we are expensively configuring on how many classes that we currently offer on different grade levels. We have also had declining enrollment. So over the last 10 years, we've had about an 8% reduction of students, which is consistent with what we've seen in Long Island, which is about 7.8% overall in Long Island. We've also had a private and parochial school decline. What I mean by that is students that live in Rockville Center. I don't say that every private and parochial school has had a decline in enrollment overall, but for the students that live in Rockville Center, we have had a reduction of about 14% over the last 10 years. We're also limited to a 2% increase on the tax levy growth factor. Our health insurance costs continue to rise at unsustainable rates. For example, this year, our health insurance is rising to the tune of about $2 million, just health insurance costs alone. We also have some unfunded mandates driving costs, such as electric busing, and our state aid formula that does not really adjust for high-cost areas like Long Island, does not recognize student need in a consistent way, and I know that this is one of the things that the state right now is currently looking at about how they allocate aid for students that are high needs. And they value property wealth more than they do inflation. So, As President Barry talked about, we have met with the Teachers Association, the Administrators Association, along with the board, and we have been digesting public comment. And we are proposing restoring some of the facilitator positions that were slated for reduction because of the leadership that our facilitators provide for our academic programs, the support they provide for our teachers and for our students, and the partnership they provide for our building administration. So we are proposing at this point restoring 13 facilitator positions. The 2 facilitator positions, one at Wilson, one at Hewitt. At the high school and middle school, there would be 4 core academic subjects for science, ELA, math, and social studies. A special ed facilitator at the high school and the middle school to help with special education programs, and the greenhouse facilitator. That proposed change is an increase of about $120,000 that we reallocated within our salary line. We also know right now that one of the things that's out there is that New York State, the legislative budget, the legislative one-house budget has foundation aid at 2%. The governor's current proposal is at 1%. If we get any potential increase in foundation aid from New York State, that would be reallocated directly to restoring teacher aid positions to support small group instruction with the input of our principals as to exactly which positions would be restored. So I did want to make sure that everyone knows that while we don't know whether or not we are going to get that revenue, if we had an additional 1% from foundation aid, that would be about $125,000 that we would put towards teacher assistants. Assistant, did I say teacher assistant? I'm sorry. Oh, teacher assistants, please, teacher assistants, thank you. I apologize for that. Ms. Rehak.
So now we're going to jump into the budget. The budget, according to New York State regulations, has to be presented in a 3-part component. And the 3-part components are the administration and program support, the academic program, and the capital component of the budget. So when we send out the 6-day postcard, which looks like a postcard that comes into homes about a week before the budget, these are the 3 parts you'll see on that as are required to be on that, and these are the amounts that will be on it. So right now, the proposed budget for 26-27 reflects $12,324,153 in the administrative and program support. That's an $18,000 increase from the 25-26 budget, or 0.15%. The academic program component is at $110,730,013, which is a $535,000 increase from 25-26, or 0.49%. The capital component is $18,269,203, which is an $881,000 increase, or 5.07%. The total budget is $141,323,369. It's about a $1.4 million increase, or a 1.03% budget-to-budget increase. The breakdown of those 3 components is the admin budget makes up 8.72% of the budget, the capital 12.93%, and program is 78.35%. This breakout is very in line with what we see in other districts within the state. It's very typical to have admin budget anywhere between 8 and 12%, program anywhere from 75 to 80%, and capital somewhere from 10 to 15%. So we are in line with what we see in all other districts as well as far as the breakout. So now just diving into what's included in each component, the administrative and program support budget, which makes up 8.72% of the budget, is made up of the district clerk, our annual budget vote, Board of Education expenses, our central administration superintendent's office, the finance office, central registration, our legal, personnel, central data processing and printing, records management, our insurance. This is not our health insurance. This is our general liability, our auto, our excess cyber, our BOCES administration fee. It's our curriculum development and supervision and staff development. So this includes everything in the curriculum and instruction office. It's the building and special schools supervision, which is our principals, their offices, assistant principals, summer school supervision, and the employee benefits that are allocated to this component of the budget. Employee benefits are in every component. They're allocated based on the salaries within that component. So you'll see that line in every single slide here. So when we look at the increases you can see if you look to the right, we have increases in legal, in insurance, in our copy center, employee benefits, and of course, we have contractual increases throughout the entire budget, depending on where salaries are. The legal is, that what we budgeted for legal is based on our current spending for employee and student matters that we have come up in the ordinary course of business. We're not on the high side or on the low side, we're really in line with what we see district spending for legal. But comparatively from year to year, we've had some years where it's higher and some years where it's lower. Insurance, we are projecting to get an 11% increase from NYSER. That's what they notified us of, so that's what we included in the budget. We have our copy center, which we have contracted with RICO, and all the equipment in our copy center, which is expiring at the end of this year. We have not gotten a formal quote for them. We've been working on the renewal with them, so we did incorporate an increase for that in the budget. And the benefits in this section are mostly made up of health insurance, is that what we're gonna say. We have some increases in ERS, some decreases in TRS, you have decreases for reductions, but the bulk of the benefits in this section is really made up of health insurance. Now, these increases are offset by reductions. We do have a reduction of an assistant principal. We have 2 clerical retirements in this section, equipment and supply reductions, and some reductions in some outside contracts that we have. So if you look at each line, on the central administration line, we do have a decrease of 1 clerical on that line. On the finance, central registration, legal, and personnel, we have an increase for our legal expenses and a corresponding decrease for a clerical. The central data processing increase of 48,000, 3.95% is mostly driven by that RICO contract that's expiring. Our insurance, we have going up 9.52%. This is mostly made up of the 11% increase from NYSER. We have some decreases in there. We had went out for new quotes for excess cyber and got a lower rate. We also had to increase insurance related to our storage tanks. So there are some other small increases and decreases, but the bulk of the increase is from the 11% from NYSER. For the Curriculum Development and Supervision Office, a lot of this decrease is made up of equipment, supplies, and these outside contracts. So we contracted out for a lot of PD, and we're going to bring a lot of that back in-house. So there's also an increase in some of our salary codes with respect to that. So it's going down in contracted, but you have an increase in salaries. Our building and special schools supervision, we did have a decrease in an assistant principal and then also decreases in equipment and supplies from all the building budgets. And then, like I said, the benefits is mostly made up of that health insurance. So now we'll move to the academic program support component, which it makes up 78.35% of the total budget. So the increases in this component of the budget, we have increases in special education, occupational education, health services, benefits, and again, we have contractual increases throughout. It's offset by reductions we've made in staffing, as discussed in previous meetings, some of the second assistant coaching assignments, some transportation decreases, clubs, the synagogue lease, and some subsidized funding for Ashokan and IB subject fees, and some of the field trip transportation costs. So if we go down in general education, most of that reduction is from staff reductions. And on the next slide, I'll overview what the reductions were and from the last time we met. But it also does include contractual increases in there as well. On the special education line, we have an increase in tuition and services related to both out-of-district and students in our schools based on student needs. We have an increase in occupational education and special schools. This is an increase in students that we have attending BOCES vocational or career tech programs. We did see a rise in enrollment for this after the pandemic, which is not unique to Rockwell Center. We really do see that, you know, in all schools across the state. So, but that has gone up. The tuition is based on a 3-year average, and so we're really hitting that first spike after the pandemic in enrollment. And now the lowest year is rolling off and higher years are rolling on. So we have an increase in tuition for that. On the library, audio, visual, and computer instruction line, we do have a retirement here that we're not replacing and less equipment and supplies for the audio visual. We had converted a lot of our equipment over the past few years, and that conversion is now complete. So we were able to reduce the equipment and supply budget as well. On the pupil personnel services line, we do have an increase. We're looking to add a BCBA psychologist. This is to reduce some of our outside contractual expenditures and support additional special classes that we have planned for next year as well. It also has an addition of a nurse, which we already added this year, but it wasn't in the budget. So we do have an addition of a nurse budget to budget. For co-curricular and athletics, we have the reduction in there is mostly driven by the reduction in the second assistant coaches and some of the clubs. We do have some increases in supplies and equipment based on what our teams actually need. For recreation and youth programs, we reduced the budget to bring it closer to what actual spending has been and what's been trending. So we were over budget in that area, so we did bring that back down to really reflect what we're actually spending. And then in employee benefits, here you may see the increase is only 4.46% as opposed to what it was in the administration support budget. And the reason for that is because we do have the increase in health of about 10%, but we also have a lot of reductions in this component of the budget. So we have a reduction for benefits that correspond to the reduction in staffing. We also had the TRS rates go down. So most of the employees in this component are actually on the TRS system as opposed to ERS, which went up. So we have a reduction for TRS due to rates. We have an increase in health insurance, but then we have a reduction for reductions in staffing. So that makes up the increase in employee benefits. So this is just what we have from the last meeting. Many of these reductions, as I mentioned, are in the program component. So teaching positions, our updated proposed reductions are 22.2. We also have retirements we will not be replacing, which is 12 positions. Our teaching assistant positions are at a reduction of 40, which, as Mr. Gavin said, will be less if we get more state aid in. We also have 4 teaching assistant retirements. We have 1 administrative position. That's in the administrative component of the budget. Clerical confidential, we have 4 retirements. 2 are in the administrative component and 2 are in the program component. And then the facilitators, we had planned to reduce the facilitators' stipends. As Mr. Gavin said, we will have 13 based on what he went over earlier back in the budget. And also reducing matrons on the buses, which is in the program component as well. The capital budget, which makes up 12.93% of the budget, is at a total of $18,269,203. It's an $881,000 increase, or 5.07%. So if we look at operations, we have $148,000 increase. This is made up of contractual increases. We also have increases for utilities in there of roughly 5%, and that's offset by reductions in equipment and some breakage that we had budgeted as well. For maintenance, we have an increase for repairs. One of the biggest increases has to do with our oil storage tanks. This came up after the last time we met. We had an inspection done. Our oil tanks are very old, and we don't use them anymore. We have gas. So it was a recommendation to abandon the tanks or remove them. Our insurance carrier, which we're also in the process of renewing, also came to us and said, your storage tanks are very old. You need to have a plan in place and budgeted funds to either abandon or remove them, or we will not insure you. So we did add repairs for the abandonment of storage tanks. We're still working on getting good quotes. We do have several of them. We have them at every building. So we'll work on that in the coming year as well. Our debt service is going down $62,000. This is based on our bond repayment schedules, so it comes straight off that on what we're required to repay this year. Our capital projects we'll review on a later slide, but we do have $2 million in transfer to capital as part of the tax cap calculation, and we'll review the details of that $2 million and what the district plans on doing in a little bit. Employee benefits, here is where you see the biggest increase in employee benefits as opposed to the other 2 components, and that's because we have the increase in health, but also we have an increase in ERS rates, and in this component, most of the employees are on ERS and not TRS, so it actually goes up further for this component. Additionally, our ERS was under budgeted, so we also had to make an adjustment to our ERS budget to account to get it closer to what we're actually spending. So with all that, we have a $549,000 increase in benefits in this component, or 13.81%. So now to review our revenue budget. Again, the overall budget is $141,323,369, or a $1.4 million increase, or 1.03%. The tax revenue is at a $2.2 million increase, which is 2.06%, which is within the tax cap. The payment in lieu of taxes, our pilots, are actually decreasing. We have one pilot expiring from the Avalon, and then we have one new one that came on. So the net difference is $186,000. In this case, when pilots go up, our tax levy goes down. When pilots go down, our tax levy goes up. So because it's going down 186, it actually drove our tax levy calculation up. So it's a wash for that. For state aid, we have a $288,000 increase, or 1.42%. This is mostly made up of the 1% increase in foundation aid, and we also have some increases in some of the expense-based aids, like BOCES aid, based on what we've expended. Our other local revenue has a reduction. The reduction is predominantly from interest and premiums. Interest rates are going down. The premiums we get on TANs are going down, so we had to reduce the budget for that. It's offset by an increase for music instrument fees, as we discussed in the last meeting. Appropriated fund balance is going down to $1.6 million. I'll also talk about that a little bit. We've talked about it in several meetings, but $1.6 million aligns with what the district's projected operating results are for the current year and what we're comfortable appropriating to next year. So it's based on fund balance projections, and they change every month, and I've adjusted this. If I did this back in November, December, I had about $1 million appropriated. There were things that took place over the last couple months. We drove down overtime costs. We cut off purchasing. We had a lot of savings in transportation that we were actively trying to change routes and things like that. And we also got in that new pilot, which we didn't know about. So those actually impacted our fund balance projection, and I was able to appropriate more. But it does change from month to month, and it's based on a projection. So that's the number we're comfortable with right now, appropriating to next year. Reserves, we still will continue to utilize reserves to offset our TRS and ERS expenditures. So just an overall look at our fund balance and reserves. This is as of June 30th, 25th, and the reason it's as of June 30th, 25th is because a lot of these get adjusted at year end. So they really stay the same throughout the year. If you look at our balance sheet, these are the numbers currently on it, and they match the June 30th trial balance. So the first one is our Employee Retirement System Contribution Reserve, or ERS. We currently have $2.5 million in that reserve, and we're budgeting to use about $500,000 of that. The next one is our Teacher Retirement System Contribution Reserve, or TRS. We're budgeting to use $300,000 of that, and we have about $1.6 million in that reserve. Our unemployment insurance reserve is about $135,000, $136,000. We did increase on our line item budget. I'm sure you saw we increased our unemployment expense. With reductions in staffing, it's important that we increase that expense. Very hard to predict what unemployment will be, because it's based on, how many people get jobs and who's on unemployment. So we did increase the budget line for that, but if the expense should go over and above what we budgeted, we do have these funds in reserves that we can use to offset anything that comes in over and above. Next, we have our reserve for employee benefit accrued liability, which we call EBLAR. This is used for contractual retirement payments each year, and that's what it can be used for, and we do use it for all those payments that we make. So it is used to the extent it can be used every year. The next is our reserve for encumbrances. Reserve for encumbrances, this is just a function of our operations each year. So we have POs in the end of the year that are still open, and some of them the work's still being done. So if the work's still being done, you don't close out the PO and then open a new one in the next year. You're able to carry it over into the next year's budget, so that you can use, if it's a 24, 25, we started the work, that PO will carry over into 25-26 and get added to the 25-26 budget. It also becomes a line item on your balance sheet, and it's called reserve for encumbrances. So that 62,000 is POs from 2024-25 that were in the works and not completed, and then got completed in 25-26. And it gets adjusted every year at the end of the year based on what our operations are in June. Assigned appropriated fund balance, this was at 2.4 million. This is what we'll be reducing to 1.6 million as discussed. And then our unassigned fund balance was 4.8 million, which was at 3.45% of the 25-26 budget. The total of the yellow bars is our restricted fund balance. That's the sum of all our reserves. They're restricted for those intended purposes. Then we have assigned fund balance, which includes our appropriated fund balance and the encumbrances. Those are in the blue. And then we have unassigned fund balance, which gets adjusted at the end of the year based on what's left over at the end of the year. So just as a reminder, we discussed this last time as well. Rockville Center, we are 55th out of 56 Nassau County districts in the amount of our unassigned fund balance. So we're the second to the lowest in what we maintain in unassigned fund balance. We're also 43rd out of 56 district for total fund balance, but when you look at our fund balance relative to our budget ratio, we're 54th out of 56 districts in Nassau County on our budget of approximately 140 million. So our fund balances relative to other districts and industry standards are on the lower side, which makes it much more difficult to bridge the gap when you have a gap in your budget. Okay. So just to look at the tax cap calculation, as I said in the revenue budget, the increase is roughly 2.2 million or 2.06%, which is within the cap. This includes a $2 million transfer to capital. Just as a reminder, I know we went through this in depth during the tax cap presentation, but we can't use these funds towards other budgeted items. The $2 million transfer to capital, if we were to remove that from the budget, we get $2 million less in tax levy. It's a dollar for dollar thing, so there's no way to say, well, can we use that money towards other operating expenses? We can't. And we also need the money to maintain our buildings. Our buildings are very old in Rockville Center, some over 100 years old, so it's very important that we continue to use this money every year to maintain them. And also, I went over in one of the February meetings what happens when you remove it and then try to put it back in. When you do that, you see fluctuations in your tax cap calculation. And fluctuations aren't a good thing because while one year may go very low, which is great for taxpayers, if you try to put it back in, it may spike really high. And then passing a budget where you have a tax cap of 5%, you may not get that to pass. So it becomes very difficult to build it back in if you remove it. So our recommendation was to continue with our transfer to capital and continue to do the work we've been doing on our buildings. Here's just a history of the last 5 years of our tax cap calculation. You can see we're mostly between 2 and 3%, which makes sense in a tax cap, in the tax cap world. We have one outlier of 0% in 21-22. Again, this is great for taxpayers. As a taxpayer, I would love to see 0%, but it makes it very difficult to maintain because it impacts you every year going forward. Your tax cap starts at your prior year levy. So if you don't go to the cap or you leave money on the table, you're never getting that back, and it affects your tax levy in perpetuity. So that becomes a little problematic, but I'm sure there were reasons why we went at 0% in that year, especially it was coming right out of the pandemic. The overall tax impact, the tax levy calculation is the start of the process. So the school district, we do that. That's the only figure actually controlled by the district. We do get a lot of questions about, people's property tax bills. That is the only thing we do. We come up with the levy for the district as a whole. Right now, our increase is at 2.06%. We certify the levy, and we send it to the county. At that point, the county then allocates the levy based on adjusted base proportions to the 4 classes of property. So there's class 1, 2, 3, and 4. Class 1 is residential 1, 2, and 3 family homes. Class 2 is residential rental and cooperative apartments and condominiums. Class 3 is utility properties. And class 4 is commercial, industrial, and institutional buildings. At that point, once they've allocated it to the different classes based on adjusted base proportions, then the class 1 is then levy is then allocated further based on the class 1 assessments. And everyone knows they get their assessment from the county. You can grieve your assessment, but it's based on that assessment that then the levy is allocated to the different homes. Assessments can change from year to year. The final proportions and assessments usually aren't done until late September, early October. We do get preliminary information now, but they are subject to change between now and October. Based on the preliminary information from the county, the average Rockville Center assessment is decreasing from 656 to 645, or about a 1.71% decrease. Some homes will be higher and some will be lower. The average market value that the county reported to me was $740,817. This will also all be in the budget brochure that gets sent to homes as well. Homeowners with an average taxable value of $645 will experience a tax increase of about $309 per household, or a 2.13% increase. The budgeted capital projects, so we have $2 million transferred to capital accounted for in the tax cap calculation. Included in this $2 million is the Covert Kindergarten Playground with the fencing and turf flooring. As you remember, we had that in last year's budget. We reallocated those funds to the high school auditorium AC, which is currently almost done. It's on schedule and going really well. But so we promised when we reallocated those funds that we would include that in the 26-27 budget. So we have the Covert Kindergarten Playground in the 26-27 budget, along with replacing some cracked windows at Covert. We have the HVAC replacements at Hewitt. We have gutter and fascia replacements at Hewitt, and the Watson Playground flooring replacement. At the Southside Middle School, this is the bulk of the renovations is really going to take place at the middle school. We know we need a lot of work at the middle school. So looking at it, we know we need it on every floor, but we have to do it in phases. So we're going to start with the first floor, and that's replacing all the ceilings, the lighting, the flooring, the lockers, and painting the entire floor. We'll try and work indoors over time too, but we can paint them at a minimum just to match the whole, the whole first floor. And then the plans are to do either the second and third floor in the following year, or the second floor and then the third floor in another year, depending on the costs at that point. We also have district-wide ceiling lighting and flooring repairs and replacements as needed, to the extent there's still money available in the transfer to capital. So after the budget vote, the architects will then create plans. Those plans are going to go to the state for approval, and when you go through this process with the state, the work can take longer. It usually does. You have to think all districts are having their budget vote in May, and they're receiving all the transfer to capital plans or possibly capital reserve plans at the same time over the summer. And then they have to review them all. They usually have a backlog. Usually we don't get approvals till after the summer, which is problematic because a lot of these larger projects need to take place in the summer. So what my anticipation for this project, especially at the middle school, the bigger project, is that it will not take place until summer of 2027. We'll get the approval probably sometime in the fall, then we'll go out to bid, and then we'll do the work in summer of 2027. If the second floor or second and third floor is on the May vote in 2027, that would take place in summer of 28. So you're always going to be on a year lag. Smaller projects we'll look to do over breaks because we can probably get approval and then do them over breaks. So why do we do this? I mean, it takes longer and sometimes can add costs because now we have soft costs with architect fees and, maybe some additional soft costs or market changes. Because now you're waiting a year, so the market can go up. We do factor all that into our projections, but we have to maximize our aid. Our building aid is 40% on these projects, amortized over 15 years, but it adds up. So we have to start, once we go through that first 1 year wait, we'll see projects happening every summer. They'll just be a year, you'll be on a year lag from what was actually on the ballot, but we do have to maximize our building aid. So that's how the projects will take place. So overall, the tax levy increase is within the tax cap, an increase of 2.06%. The budget-to-budget increase is 1.03%. The budget includes capital projects in the amount of $2 million, including major renovations at the Southside Middle School first floor. The budget vote is Tuesday, May 19th, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the Southside High School Main Gymnasium. We have the Board of Education trustee election with 2 seats at large. If anyone is not registered to vote, you can do so at the district office through May 14th. Absentee ballots must be received by the district clerk by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, May 19th. We also have the RBC Public Library budget vote on our ballot. It's Proposition 2 on the ballot, and we also have their trustee election, which has 1 seat at large. That is the end of the presentation for the hearing.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rehak and Mr. Gavin. At this time, I'm going to open up the mic for opportunity for visitors only on the budget. There will be another opportunity later in the meeting if you want to come and address the board about any other topic outside of the budget. When you come to the mic, please just state your name and address, and please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Excuse me. Could you just move to the other side, please? Thank you so much.
Good evening, Leslie Danino, Rockville Center Teachers Association President. I want to begin by thanking members of the Board of Education and administration for taking the time to meet with us and for engaging in ongoing conversations. We appreciate the effort to work together and to find ways to reduce the impact on our students. That shared goal matters, and it is something we all take very seriously. In the spirit of collaboration, I want to be very clear. It is critically important that this budget passes. The reality is that the impacts we are already seeing are significant. And if this budget does not pass, the programmatic cuts will be far worse. Those cuts will directly affect students in ways that cannot be easily undone. In our classrooms, these decisions are not abstract. We are already experiencing the impact. Since December, there has been a spending freeze, and we have seen firsthand what that means for our schools. Resources are limited, materials are delayed or unavailable, and opportunities for students are reduced. Larger class size means individual attention, loss of individual attention, reductions in AIS and ICT services mean that our most vulnerable learners receive less support. Cuts to programs limit opportunities that keep students engaged, motivated, and connected to school. Every reduction has a ripple effect, and our students feel it immediately. We do want to acknowledge that today the district did provide responses to some of the questions we raised regarding the line-by-line budget, and we appreciate that effort. However, we still have outstanding questions, and there remain inconsistencies that have not been fully explained. For example, the district has stated that contracted special education costs are $600,000 over budget. Yet in the appropriation status report included in tonight's agenda, which reflects spending through the end of February, the increase shown is approximately $136,000. And even with that, there is still about $67,000 remaining in that budget line that has not yet been used. That raises a very clear question. Where is the additional $600,000 in spending being accounted for? This level of discrepancy requires a clear and transparent explanation. Transparency is essential, especially when the decisions being made have such a profound impact on students, staff, and the entire community. There are still questions regarding staff reductions. Originally, it was proposed a total loss of 36.8 teaching positions. At the last meeting, 3 positions were added back, making it 33.8. In the slide shown today, it shows 34.2. 2.6 teachers unaccounted for. The impact of this on the budget is questionable. We also need to address process. We made a clear request with ample time to move the location of this meeting to allow for full participation. That request was rejected, and people decided to stay home and watch. Quite simply, that is disappointing and not acceptable. If we are truly committed to collaboration, then ensuring access and the opportunity for all voices to be heard must be part of that commitment. We understand the reality of what happens if the budget fails. We understand that additional programmatic cuts will follow, and those cuts will go deeper into classrooms, into services, and into opportunities for students. This moment matters. Passing the budget is not about accepting everything without question. It is about preventing even greater harm to students while continuing to demand transparency, accountability, and better planning moving forward. We cannot afford to move backward. We cannot afford deeper cuts to classrooms, and we cannot afford decisions that will further limit what we can provide to our students next year and in the years to come. I urge this board and this community to recognize what is at stake. Put students first. They cannot absorb more loss, and remember what makes this community such a special place. The decisions being made right now will shape that future. What you are considering will change this place forever. Thank you, Ms. Danino. I just want to address one thing on behalf of the location, in terms of the location of the meeting. It was requested to move it to the auditorium. The NISMA program was holding their tryouts in the auditorium and throughout this building. We were hosting over 900 students from Nassau County. That's why we weren't able to do it. However, we wanted to be able to live stream the meeting as well, so that's here. We also, I should have mentioned earlier this evening, but I forgot, there are live streams in the science classrooms behind us, and anyone that is standing or in the hall and wants to come in can always come to the mic. So that was the reason for the location of the meeting. I'm going to ask Ms. Rehak and Mr. Gavin to speak to the two other questions that were raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Danino. I did respond to you. It was probably just before this meeting because we were preparing for the meeting all day. But so the special ed budget, not everything is encumbered. Billing from contracted service providers very often is very behind. This is not unique here. It's not new. It's been going on for years. There are some service providers that don't provide bills from September and October until after January. So for a lot of things, that included, we do projections outside of Envision because Envision does not become reliable. I work with special ed on them. So you can't go based on the appropriation status report. You can ask me about it and I can give you the information based on the projection we have for the students we have receiving services, how many times a week, what each costs and everything else. And it does change from constantly, as you know. So that's with respect to contracted services. Same thing with BOCES. BOCES does not get encumbered until we receive an invoice. They're not on a lag. We get an invoice from BOCES every month. It's on a 1-month lag, but not everything makes it to the bill. Like, so there are some things that we've had the service all year. We keep calling BOCES. It's not on the bill yet, so it's not included in the encumbrance. So yes, I could easily walk you through those things. I'd be happy to talk to you about them. And I did write to some of that in my response to you tonight, but thank you.
In terms of the reductions, I know there was a question about the number. Our teaching position reductions are 22.2, which includes 19 excess and 3.2 positions in terms of some part-time positions as well as a resignation. So we've had a resignation as well. We also know that our staffing has been a moving target because some teachers that have been at risk of accessing are getting jobs in other districts. So that continues to impact the number that we have in terms of what the overall excess would be. We also know, too, that as scheduling has changed, we've also made some adjustments like we talked about last meeting. So I'll give you an example. One of the things we knew we had to do is we had 13 total retirements, but we need to replace one of those retirements in terms of English language arts. So you see, while there's 12 teaching positions in terms of retirements that we're not going to replace, there are actually 13 retirements that we have. We know we need to replace that and put in contingencies into the budget as well. So we have contingent positions in the budget as well. 2 on the elementary level. We also had an increase for 1 elementary classroom because we had an increase in enrollment at Hewitt Elementary. So we know that that went up. We have 2 contingents that if over the summer, we know we're watching 1 grade at Covert, that if we have another student or 2, we might need another class there. And we also have a contingent position in there for ESL and or world language and or world language at the elementary school, depending on some flexibility that we have in terms of how our enrollment plays out. So while our schedules are not all completely done, we did put in some contingent positions into the budget. As of right now, we are anticipating, like I said before, 19 excesses with an additional 3.2 reductions in terms of part-time teaching positions and 1 resignation.
Hi, my name is Joe Tursing. I live at 73 South Lewis Place. When I first started looking into some of these things, I actually was trying to establish a case for why we should spend more money on teachers in the general ed population. And I realized that that's something that is very important. I also realized that it's one of the struggles that the board, the superintendent, has to deal with and probably effectively manages. As I went through all of the numbers, and my numbers are that I had available to me were a year old, so perhaps I'm a little off, but generally speaking, it seems to me that one of the things in the budget, which led me to my research, was that in the special ed line, we're going up over 15% this year. Now, I agree that special ed is tremendously important and should be continued, and I would also posit that special ed maybe should be spent, we should spend even more money on that. And the reason why I say that is, as Mr. Gavin said before, the costs are going up because of the elementary schools, the reduction in students, private and parochial school reductions, health insurance, the 2% cap, state aid formula, and the property and community wealth factor. Well, one of the things that I noticed that wasn't mentioned was the fact that we have over about 3,000 children in the school, and about 500 of them are in the special ed program. If I'm wrong, please correct me. In that special ed program, there are different levels, and I won't profess to know how it breaks out, but I can say that there are certain levels that exhibit out-of-district funds. So, meaning that children that are in our district get bussed out either because we can't identify or support what they need, so we have to send them where they have to go, or the parents choose to send them somewhere else, or there's a BOCES program. We have to do that. It's mandated by the state. I understand. Those children cost this district more than twice as much as all of the rest of the kids per student. I think that since it wasn't mentioned, we should be looking at how we can bring those students in district. We would eliminate paying other districts for those children. We would eliminate transporting those children to another district, which is over $1 million in the budget. And we could save some money there. I 100% agree that we need to support this process. I think that in the meetings that I've attended and the meetings that I've watched, we haven't really discussed how we can save money on this. We have school buildings that are people bring up saying we don't need. Well, I won't even mention one. Pick one. Close it down. Put special ed kids in there, invite people from other districts to send their children here, and they'll pay us. I don't know how else to say it other than I think that the budget process, and I've done it for 40 years in my work life, the budget process needs to address things that are not obvious. There's a lot of things that are on there that make total sense, but there are things that have always been done that need to be looked at and decided on whether we need to continue to do them.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. A few presentations back, and we did mention something briefly to address your question about how we have provided additional programs or looking for bringing some of our students that might go to some higher cost tuitions to come back here to district. So just so you know, we have added a number of special classes at the elementary level. We plan on adding an additional special class on the elementary level for next year. And then Ms. Rehak mentioned a position that we put into the budget for next year, which is called a BCBA, which is a specialized psychologist that works with students with significant behavioral needs that in other places might cost us money or cause us to have a contract that we are bringing on staff to try to make sure that we support our students in the best way possible. Ms. Dalton, did I miss anything there?
I'd also like to share that we also looked at the speech needs of our students, and by adding back the speech position, students that would require a high level of language support is allowing us to, rather than consider an out-of-district placement, mirror what is provided in that out-of-district placement by having that speech collaborative model in the classroom. So we are very much in tune with looking at our students' needs and looking to build programming, which is why we have an additional 812 class on the slate and the staffing to accommodate that. We are
And
looking
then,
to grow.
Just a
the
follow-up
other one is,
question.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to mention too, we have also expanded our Twilight program for students that require credit recovery and additional support. That's another cost savings that the district has put in place over the last 2 years that saves sending students to different out-of-district types of programs.
Okay, if I can ask a follow-up question then.
Sure.
How many students are being transported out of our district right now?
Well, do you want to talk about
Yeah,
that one?
that's a lot, because it's not just special ed students, it's private and parochial, it's a lot, it's a high number.
I'm talking about special ed students that are going outside of district.
You know what number offhand? It's about,
We have 18 and then 20.
yeah, I don't have the number offhand, I can get it for you. I don't
That's
know it
fine.
offhand.
The reason why I ask is because when I researched it, it seemed like it was around 50 or 60. Okay? And at $150,000 per student plus transportation, seems like a significant amount of money can be saved if we brought them into our district. Just a portion of them, a small portion.
Well,
So since you don't have the number at your hands,
I have it at my fingertips now.
great.
We have 16 students that attend state-approved, what we call private schools, and 20 students that are at BOCES schools. So, but when we look at our students, my job is to make sure that the students receive what they need, and each child is an
Absolutely.
individual.
Mhm.
And so when we look at they have to have a similarity of need that the district could meet to create that class structure for them.
Okay.
So, you know, right, and it would be cost savings for the district to create a program that would have enough students with that similarity of need that we could safely meet their needs and ensure that they make meaningful growth towards their goals by having them here. Our goal always with the Committee of Special Education is for our students to be learning alongside their peers in the least restrictive environment. So when we make that recommendation for a student to need to be educated in a school that is outside of the district, it is because it is what is right with them and always in agreement with our families.
100% agree. You don't have any choice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jeff Greenfield, citizen taxpayer, Yuba Court. It's my 56th year of going to budget hearings. And this is a great turnout, but it's probably one of the worst budget situations that I've seen in all those years. And I don't know how we dug ourselves into such a hole. But I'm here to tell you, you lost the confidence of the community in as shepherds and stewards of our money. And I think we need a forensic accounting on the current year's situation so that the community could be satisfied and have I have my own theories on how we got there. We overspent with all that extra COVID money we had. You all spent like my wife spends, but she has me to back her up, okay? I'm afraid that we're going to have further decline with this, in the school community with this budget, and it'll have long-term impacts. Let's go into specifics. Capital project bond. Got $2 million for the middle school. I don't think these are the same lights when I went to the school there 50-some-odd years ago. And certainly my kids, it was the same lights, and they survived their education. I like to see you pull it out of this year's budget, better spend it on the kids, the students, and teachers, and have a bond issue. Do all 4 floors in one bond issue. Interest rates are supposed to come down and have less of an impact upon the current year's budget. And do it the right way. Do it through a bond issue. And don't be afraid to put up a bond issue in this community. It's always supported bond issues. And I think if you take it out for this year, then I think it would go a long way in getting the budget passed, because I agree with the president of the Teachers Association. The worst thing would be the budget being voted down. I think at this point in the discussions, the taxpayers need a win. And the win for the taxpayers is not to rush into those capital. $2 million is substantial capital. Not talking about fixing toilets or a playground that you deferred. $2 million is real money. That's what my father taught me. Electric buses. I don't know why that's such a villain. I believe in electric, especially here. We have such great electric rates. We should convert the whole fleet of those minibuses we have to all electric and save a lot of money and be good for the environment also. But I have a few other specifics here. I don't understand on page 3, $350,000 for legal. I don't, are we burying money there for settlements? Why such a substantial increase? And anytime I ask counsel for a question, I'm told I'm not allowed to ask them. I'm only a taxpayer, and I have a question. I was admonished on more than one occasion here, I can't ask questions of the counsel, and he doesn't answer me, so maybe he shouldn't come to the meetings and we should save money. Okay, I need an explanation why such an increase. My other pet peeve is BOCES. Having gone, I don't think anyone in this room has ever been to a BOCES meeting. I don't think I want to go back. The way they run things is very disconcerting. They gave us $1 million extra bill for transportation last year, and you all just passed it on to us and no one questioned it. I went there on 3 or 4 occasions. I wrote them letters. I questioned it, and they promised me answers, and they never gave me answers. You should be demanding answers from both seats. Why are they entitled to an increase this year? We're in a tough time here. Tell them we need a decrease. Negotiate with them. Talk to them. I don't know where the BOCES transportation number is. I'd like to see it. Can I have some answers on those? Well,
So,
We'll start with the
I'll s-
transportation, Mr. Hare, or wherever, however
She's
you,
gonna pull it
whatever
up.
you
She's got
want.
a couple.
That's fine, whatever you want to start with, and then I'll just ask Mr. Miller.
BOCES transportation is on page 37. It's the last line on there, and you'll see a decrease in BOCES transportation.
it's a miracle.
So, well, I'll answer some of your questions. So, you said, you talked about the capital projects, and $2 million is a lot, and it should be applied towards current year funds. As I explained today and in multiple previous meetings, we cannot do that. If I remove the $2 million in capital, I'm just going to get $2 million less in revenue. So we won't have the projects, and I can't use it towards operating budget. A transfer to capital is a specific line item on the tax cap. If I remove it, your tax levy goes down. We don't do any capital projects, but I can't use it towards operating budget. So that would be great if we could do that, but we cannot do that, unfortunately. So that just to answer your question about the transfer to capital. Regarding electric buses, we only have a few small vans. We contract out for most of our buses. So what we've been seeing from transportation companies across the board in the state is the huge increases in transportation. So when we have to go out to bid for transportation and take the lowest bidder, and usually we only get one bid from one company. That same applies for BOCES, right? So what's happening is districts have been seeing, and I saw it in my previous district too, an increase of anywhere from 25 to 45% in their transportation from one year to the next, which is a huge increase. For Rockville Center, we contract out. Our contract is up at the end of next year. So I do anticipate in next year's budget, we're going to get hit with a big increase. They will not extend beyond next year. We have to go out to bid. As far as BOCES transportation, their contract was expired. They had to go out to bid. And just like the school districts, they got hit with a major increase. When they got hit with that increase, they have to pass those costs to the districts. They're supplying the busing. We say, I have this many students, and that's what they do. When I saw the increase, one of the things we did here was I moved a lot of all the career technical transportation in district with our own provider. So we generated huge cost savings on that. That's why we don't have a major increase in the budget on BOCES, because now we're only transporting our special ed students through BOCES. And that's because they go to all different schools, so it wouldn't be cost effective for me to bring a bus in-house, whereas Career Technical is one school, and I was able to do that. So that's something we did with respect to transportation.
Long before you got here, long before anyone, I've been advocating, a lot of school districts have their own buses. And I advocated, and we had a facility here, which has now since been repurposed, that we should get together Lynbrook, Rockville Center, maybe Oceanside, and put together our own busing group, because we could do it for less. And we could do it with CNG gas, because that was in the Misburg garage, the nice garage over, but the county has already released that, and it can only be used for transportation. But the way that BOCES charges for busing, I think it'd be cheaper to send kids by Uber than what they charge. They don't do any, I understand, nothing's worse than sole source bids. So my others that I spoke about regularly here, but I may have a new audience here, is health insurance. That we have New York State, NYSHIP, New York State Health Insurance Plan, United Health. They have a $2 billion plus sole source contract with the state of New York. I urged the controller, my friend Tom DiNapoli, to bid it. He said it's up to the governor. Maybe this is the year in a gubernatorial election. I told my friend Bruce Blakeman about this, but maybe through your associations, you should be advocating for this. Certainly somebody else can do it, and somebody can do it for less with a little competition. We need a little competition. One more question I have. Greenhouse, how many students in Greenhouse? Please.
18.
What are we spending on Greenhouse? And I'm not thrilled with that basement over there.
Are you talking about the lease, Jeff?
Yeah, the lease, you ended the lease.
Lease is, I'm pretty sure it's about 50,000 for the lease.
Can we put those 18 students someplace better for less money?
We have started to look at a number of different, so we've already reduced one lease this year in terms of the synagogue.
Yeah, that I know.
Wilson, and that's based on enrollment and how we're able to manage program within the building. One of the other things is we have a new person in charge of the greenhouse now. He asked for the first year to evaluate the space and see how it is where it exists, and that's one of the things that we're continuing to
So
look at.
is the lease up in the greenhouse?
This year, I have to double check that.
I don't think you could do it more than, so my idea was to flip it out of the basement there. I think that's terrible down there. And also, I've seen kids, I'm around during the day, there's fire calls and stuff. They roam around the neighborhood there, under the old director. Maybe the new director's a little better this year, but last year they were roaming around. So what if we got rid of that lease in the basement, put them in the synagogue if it's around the same money, and they won't have the same appetite to roam around the community. And we're only talking about 18 students, and maybe if we went back to the synagogue and asked them for less space, I don't know how much before. I'm just giving you some creative food for thought. I don't always want to be viewed as being negative here at the microphone.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Mr.
Thank
Hack,
you.
can you just speak to the legal line as well? And then Mr. Miller, if you just want to say what's included in that as well. And we appreciate your presence and respect and value your
I like to hear you
presence here as
speak.
well.
I'm paying for you.
I'm asking.
As far as what we budgeted, we looked at what we were running this year, and we budgeted something comparable. It's really, we're not able to know what we're gonna expend,
Yeah.
because it's for things that haven't happened yet or aren't in the works. So we kind of look at that and budget.
That's in
that.
line and comparable with other districts.
And as far as other districts, yes, I think we are in line. I know, Howard, you can speak more.
And we also reviewed the legal payouts and what we put in the budget at the last meeting, and we talked about some years we underexpended it, some years we overexpended it. So Howard, you want to finish that up?
Okay, it actually doesn't cost the taxpayers any money for me to be here. You have a retainer that's actually low compared to other school districts, so whether I'm here or not, it's the same amount of money. I don't recall you ever asking me a question that I
They cut me off, they wouldn't
Oh,
let me.
okay, but I do recall us having cordial conversations after board meetings.
No, I didn't say you weren't a good
so,
lawyer, or you weren't cordial, but
and
you don't say anything at the meetings.
When he's asked,
At
he
the public
answers.
meetings, maybe the
Admittedly,
private meetings.
Yes. There are times when I've been asked to address certain legal issues that the public may have. Our rates in Rockville Center are low compared to our other clients. And Rockville Center.
I won't tell any other clients
No,
that.
please don't, even though we're public. And then I do have to
I
say.
only have one other
that-
district of citizen taxpayer. I'll
Mr.
check
Miller,
that.
go ahead.
So, and I do have to say, my firm represents about 100 school districts around the state and a lot of colleges, private companies. This community is actually one of the least litigious I've ever been around, which is a good thing. Now, you do have a budget just in case you have to do, for example, a special ed hearing or an employee disciplinary hearing, and hopefully you won't hit that budgeted amount, but you don't want to not have the money just in case.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Greenfeld.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask the board for a roll call vote on adoption of the proposed budget. Dr. Downing, we'll start with you.
I just want to thank the administrators and the teachers who met with us members of the board over the past 2 weeks to make adjustments, as we saw tonight reflected in the presentation. We appreciate the collaboration. We will certainly need it going forward. I'm voting yes to the roll call vote because I think that this proposed budget gives our district the best chance to continue the programs that we know are successful for our students. This budget considers the enrollment that we currently have, and it stays within the tax cap and enables our programs to be as sustainable for the economic conditions that we live in.
Thank you. Mrs. Gruner?
I also want to thank everybody for the collaboration. I want to additionally acknowledge that, again, this is frustrating and anxiety-producing for everyone, teachers, families, students alike. We've heard from so many people who have expressed their frustration and their feeling that in all that we're deciding, we are not cutting the right things, or that we are ignoring the needs of our students or the good of the district. And I understand emotion is heavily involved in this, and I understand that part of the problem is not really understanding what next year is going to look like. I think this is step one. I think we need to and will continue to have conversations about what this is going to do in classrooms, how we're going to make it work. If it's not working, then we will refine and adjust as needed next year. We also need to continue looking at much longer-term fixes, more revenue, different structures, different zones, all of those things. Just because we're making this decision today does not mean that we're making it and walking away. We're making it and then continuing to plan as best we can to continue to change things. But I confidently feel that as hard as it is today, if we do not make the decisions that we're making now, we are going to be in the same position, facing the same problems next year. Okay, so for that reason, I think we need to make the hard choice now, and then we need to regroup and build from it. I am voting to support the budget, and I urge the community to do the same.
Thank you. Mrs. Hackett?
Also agree. It's really important that we keep having conversations, and thank you to the Teachers Union and Administrators Union for collaboration and conversation, because I think that really made a very big difference in us moving this forward, and that's what we need to do. We need to move forward. It's not painless, and it's been really hard, and I think all of us have taken it really hard. Couple of things that stand out: not piercing the cap. We did try really hard to not propose that and start that as a trend in this district. We've never really done that. We do need to right size. I think we have gone through the numbers enough to see that we have a lot of things we have to contend with, and we do have to right size, so there's that component. I want us to be sustainable, and I also agree with Mrs. Gruner. We can't stop here. I want us to find more sources of revenue. I don't want people to be on the chopping block for righting the wrongs of our numbers, or, trying to contend with what we're contending with, which is reality. So I really hope that's what's on our agenda for the next year. Again, thank you for everybody for coming. I'm going to vote yes for the budget.
Thank you. Ms. Messier?
From the outset of these budget discussions, I've been pretty clear. I cannot support reductions that undermine the instructional models we have intentionally designed, invested in, and asked our teachers to implement with fidelity over the past 4 years. What's most concerning about this budget is that many of the cuts, particularly around the reduction of TAs, change to our ICT model, decrease in FLES, decrease in Stellar, are not unavoidable trade-offs, they are choices. And they reflect a pattern of choosing what is easier to implement over what we know is educationally sound. We are not strengthening systems, we are hollowing them out. We are not aligning resources, we are stretching them beyond the point of effectiveness. And we are not being fully transparent about the impact of these decisions. It would be a lot easier to accept this budget than to confront the harder questions it raises about alignment, priorities, and design. But my responsibility is not to do what is easy, it's to do what's sound. And in its current form, the proposed budget is not. For these reasons, I will not approve the adoption of this budget tonight.
We have to put, as a board, we have to put forth a budget that is both fiscally responsible while trying to maintain and put forth our best instructional program and have student outcomes in mind. These are the tough decisions that we have to make as a board. No one wants to excess any positions. This is not ideal for any of us, but we have to find that balance between what is fiscally responsible, taking into account both the knowns and the unknowns, and putting forth the best possible outcome within that current reality and within the current restraints that we face. So for those reasons, I vote yes on the proposed budget. At this point, I will ask for a motion to adopt the property tax report card.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Turning to policies. We have 2 policies currently at stage 3. We have 5661 district wellness. Are we okay to move this for approval?
Yes, we can move this to approval at the next meeting.
7420 placement program for interscholastic athletics. Okay to move this for approval as well?
No changes since the last version. Okay to move.
No.
Opportunity for superintendent, Mr. Gavin.
Thank you, President Barry. Earlier today, the state and assembly passed the 4th state budget extender. This latest extender funds the state government operations and obligations through Monday, April 20th. As state negotiations continue, we understand that the necessity of budget extenders to keep vital government services running. However, we must emphasize that there are severe timeline challenges to school districts as we currently face them as we develop our local budgets. We unfortunately haven't grown accustomed to budgeting in the dark due to the late state budgets in recent years. This experience doesn't make the process any less volatile. We urge our governor and legislator to reach an agreement quickly, and our students and taxpayers deserve a budget that provides the clarity and support necessary to keep our schools moving forward. So we just hope that the state can provide us with clarity on the state budget as soon as possible.
Thank you. Opportunity for board members, Ms. Messier.
The role of a Board of Education member is to provide oversight, to ensure that the district's decisions are fiscally responsible, transparent, and aligned to what is best for students. Throughout this process, I've taken that responsibility seriously. I've asked questions, sought clarity, and advocated for greater transparency so that we could fully understand both our financial position and the decisions in front of us. At times, that clarity has been limited. And now we are here facing a budget that, in my opinion, is not fully aligned with our stated priorities and instructional commitments. This is the budget that will go before our community in May. The decision to accept it or reject it will rest with them. Accepting it means moving forward with the reductions and changes outlined, along with their very real impact on programs, staffing, and the day-to-day instructional experience of our students. Rejecting it would result in a contingency budget, which would require deeper, more immediate cuts and further limit what we are able to provide for students. It would remove flexibility and lead to additional reductions that go beyond what is proposed here. This is not where we should be, but it is where we are. While the path forward is not without consequence, my focus remains on minimizing harm to students while holding firm to the expectation that we must do better, both in process and outcome.
Mrs. Hackett?
Congratulations to the cast and crew of Chicago. Fantastic job. I also wanted to wish all of our NISMA students good luck. I want to thank the students that attended tonight and spoke very eloquently, from our junior elementary student to our high school students. We love having our students, and Callie, I know she had to leave, but we love having our student representative. I think it goes without saying that we could move forward in various ways, and I just really hope that this community can move forward positively together. And I think that that sounds easy, and I don't take that lightly. I know it's been hard for everybody, but really we move better forward together than we do apart. We all really value the teachers of this district. We truly do. I personally do very, very much. And I thank you, each of you, for the impact you've had on our students. It's really important. So that, don't want that to be lost with moving forward with this budget, equaling a disrespect towards the people that we know carry this district forward. So I want to say that clearly and, you know, make sure that that's heard. So thank you to our teachers for supporting this budget. I think that that's a really big step moving forward here. And I hope the community can do the same. I hope that they feel that we understand and have listened to what they've said. So let's move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gruner?
Thank you. I also do want to congratulate everybody who took part in the musical. It was a phenomenal show. They were fantastic. And they put in so much hard work, and if you didn't get a chance to see it, you should watch it on YouTube, because it really was amazing to watch it all come together. I mean, I've thought about this pretty much every day since we found out, and I don't say that in a woe is me kind of way, because you've all been thinking about it. It's literally the first thing as I open my eyes in the morning. The thoughts about the budget are already running through my brain. Okay? I have a different perspective. I don't think we're focusing enough on all of the wonderful things that we still will provide in this district. Yes, will things be different? They will. Okay, will small group instruction get larger? It will. Will we have to shift how we provide small group instruction in our elementary schools? We will. I also believe that our teachers and our administrators are having conversations already about what that's going to look like. I urge you next year, as it's happening, to be open and honest with your feedback and let us know. And if that means we need to reevaluate where we've placed our money next year and look at other options, we will do that. The flip side of not making the changes now, there's only so many places the money can come from. And whether we like it or not, our expenses are way higher than our revenue is. That is not changing in the next couple of years. Okay, we are going to continue to see increases of 10% in insurance. We're going to see major transportation increases. So the pie is limited. The places we can cut are limited. Okay, and if you look at the 78% of our budget going towards instruction, I think there's a misconception that the only piece of the puzzle is the teachers in the classroom, and they are immensely valuable. And the fact that we are losing wonderful educators makes me really sad. But 78% covers so much more than the teachers in the classroom. It covers our coaches, it covers our teams, it covers our drama, it covers our music, it covers our custodial staff, it covers our nurses, it covers clubs, it covers any other number of things, and all of those things impact students. And could we cut from those things? Yes, we could, but then that would fundamentally offer some of the things kids love best about being in school. So, and theoretically, could we cut from administrators, as has been suggested? I guess, but everyone in this room knows what an administrator does. If you're a teacher, either in this district or out of this district, you know how important your principal is to running your building, or so I understand that this is not what people want to hear. It's not what any of us want to hear, okay? But I know that the administrative team has been over this budget. They could probably recite it to you in their sleep at this point. They have looked for every dollar, But the fact of the matter is, the largest driver of our costs, okay, is staffing, because it comes with the salary, the contractual increase year over year, which is absolutely deserved and truthfully not enough in the world that we live in, okay? And the insurance and benefits implication as well, which also increases year over year. And in the past, we used to be a district that required IB for all, okay? And I know people still think that we are an IB for all district, but we're not. We have shifted over the past 5 years. There is so much more choice for kids. When I first started paying attention, every student had to be in an IB English and an IB Social Studies class for their 11th and 12th grade year. And every student had to be in Algebra 1 and Earth Science in their 8th grade year. And that is not the case anymore. And are there things there that we could still fix? Yes, but we have shifted. But when we were an IB for all school, and we didn't have a full-day ICT program, okay, we solved those problems by having many TAs and many aides who could come in and help support our kids, okay? And then we shifted, and then we also shifted to ICT, but we didn't really shift any of the models of what we were providing. And that does not mean that I don't value every single person that provided those things, but okay, we can't continue to run two things that are both intended to target a similar need. Okay? And I know, I'm watching, I know that that's not a popular thing, but if we are not making cuts at the moment, okay, we have been overly reliant on a 2.8 or $2.4 million surplus year over year, and that surplus no longer exists. And we need to shift our operating budget so that we can rely less on a year over year surplus and be able to sustain our system. So I know that was a lot of time. I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Downing?
It's been a challenging budget season for our district. It's not a position any of us want to be in now or in the future. But yes, this time of year, this spring, we do have much to celebrate at all of our schools, book fairs and TED Talks and science fairs. And it's all the teachers and the administrators and the staff and the volunteers who bring so much to our students' education, and they make all of these events possible. Last year, we asked many of those same folks to convene a strategic planning committee, and as a board, we adopted that plan. And as we looked at budget and finance, it was clear we need to work towards building up reserves and enhancing our revenue opportunities to help us weather the financial challenges of this economic condition that we live in. I want to also thank the PTAs and SEP for hosting us. I think we've had productive discussions, and we will be at future PTA meetings to continue to answer questions and to collaborate as this budget continues to impact our district. On the note of supporting our district and supporting our students and our teachers, I would encourage everyone to attend the annual Ed Foundation Gala. It's May 2nd, and this is a group that has supported all of the innovative work that our teachers have brought to this district over the past 35 years. It's rvcedfoundation.org, and it really would be a great event to see a lot of our district come out and support our students and our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will open up the mic once again for opportunity for visitors. The public is reminded to address questions or remarks to the board through its president. Is requested to refrain from making any direct references to students or staff members that could be considered critical of their performance or their character. Such references to individual students or staff members are inappropriate in a public forum and should instead be conducted in private conversation with appropriate members of the staff. Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I probably should have said this earlier, but I'm assuming that I can still say it now. I didn't think I was going to speak, and so this is probably going to be a little all over the place, so please bear with me. After I got home from the last public meeting that I spoke at, with all the cuts on slides, my husband, who is the sole income in our five-person family, five-person household, blue collar, said piercing the cap wouldn't be that bad for us. And I say this publicly, which is, slightly embarrassing because here I am discussing my finances. We're not a family that could just, I don't want to give you extra money. But Ms. Rehak, when I put you on the email the other day with Mr. DiTomaso, the reason I put you on that email, and I know that you did email me back, was because I was wondering, where did that go? Where did that option go? And believe me, I know it's probably not public opinion here to pay more taxes. It's not mine either. But when I got home from that meeting, for my husband to say that in a household that is not affluent, I mean, because it's, if we do this, can we save all the teachers? And just so that everyone here knows, I only have one child here in public school, and he's in 3rd grade. He will only be in public school until the end of 5th grade, and then I will move him elsewhere. So willing to vote to pierce that cap if it was still a thing for only the 2 years that my son would still be remaining in public school. So I just want to say that. And maybe that's not a trend that we wanted to set ourselves up for. Ms. Rehak, you mentioned before, we don't want to really do this, but maybe we should have done it this year. I have good friends here that I follow very similar stance on things with, but their kids are not in elementary school here, and so I think that this affects them differently. Not I think, I know. And I was a teacher, an elementary school teacher, and at the end of the day, I always think about, obviously my own child comes first, my own children, but I'm always thinking about everyone's children because this is what I used to do. I've also heard many people say that if there are cuts, Ms. Messier, speaking specifically, let's say to the reading program, that if there are cuts, don't worry, the teachers in Rockville Center, they're gonna rise to the occasion. So to that I say, don't doubt that any of you will rise to said occasion. But my thing is, I taught in New York City. I bought a house in Rockville Center. Why do we need to why do we have to ask our teachers to rise to an occasion where they're not given, I don't know what the reading program requires, but if it requires 7 adults in that classroom for it to run effectively, then what occasion are we asking teachers to rise to? There should be those 7 adults. And if there are not going to be those 7 adults, then you need a new program because that program requires the 7 adults. I'm just picking a number. And then if you get a new program, then that new program costs money and training, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I feel about that. You know my thoughts on Stellar. I know that they'll still get a book exchange, but it's the only class of my son's cycle, specifically my son, but probably not all kids, that my son really looks forward to and enjoys. That's not to say that the supportive work his classroom teacher gives him is not, he loves that too. But speaking of a subject, that's the one that he enjoys the most. So that's very disheartening to me. And then the other thing I have here, and I hope I got all my notes because I'm all over the place. You mentioned before about transportation of a career program, something about that, right? And how you're gonna figure it out and we're gonna pay for it here or it's gonna be done in Rockville Center. So I thought why wasn't that done for the last 10 years? I'm just because maybe it would have saved money if it was done the last 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. I don't know. I'm listening to citizen taxpayer and I'm listening to you and I'm just, my brain is all over the place and I hope that I said everything.
Thank you.
I hope that I said, but I thought that we're gonna save the money, but great, why didn't we save it for 10, why didn't we save it for 10 years? I'm probably not the, the most liked person to do that, but I think that's everything I wanted to say, but I just, losing the teachers and, my son spoke before about, specifically, one of the TAs that I don't know, this is just, it's bad. Like I said, I don't know where the piercing the cap went. I certainly don't want to give you people any more money. It's only going to be for 2 years anyway. But if that was still on the table, I would vote to do it if it was going to save these teachers. So that's my.
We discussed it at a prior board meeting, what it would look like if we pierced the cap, and as a board, we decided not to put that in the proposed budget. Ms. Rehak, I'll ask you to just talk through that transportation question. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lutz.
Yeah, so the decision was made to move it. We moved it this year. We already brought it back to one of our own and got our own bus for it instead of going through BOCES. And that's because BOCES, their contract was up. They had to go out to bid, and they were hit with a 30% increase. So naturally, their costs get shared to us. So we were hit with a 30% increase because they had to go out to rebid. So rather than paying a 30% increase, we looked at prices if we got our own bus to avoid that giant spike. And that's why we did it. So that's why we had the savings. It's because there was going to be a huge increase.
Thank you.
I'm Keith Gamache, a teacher here at Southside High School for 32 years. I want to speak in support of our IB program. I'm not going to bombard you with impressive historical statistics of our results. They've been shared with the board annually by Ms. Darby, along with Ms. Nisler, Mr. Murphy, and Mr. Weiss before her. Rather, I want to share a story about IB that has been forgotten by some and perhaps unknown by many. We often stand up for the traditions that define us, like red and blue 110 years strong and our celebrated athletics programs with banners commemorating decades of championships. These are sources of tremendous pride. They are part of our collective identity, and they should be. As an academic institution, we should take equal pride in our academic traditions and celebrate the IB program with the same zeal we apply to red and blue. Every program is a line item in our budget, but they embody far more than a dollar amount. In this time of financial strain, I fear we have lost sight of the IB's significance. Southside High School was the first public school in New York State to adopt the IB program in 1982, 43 years ago. It replaced a traditional gifted program with a more inclusive, rigorous college-level curriculum. Today, there are over 100 public IB schools in New York. We were the first. When I arrived in 1994, I became part of the golden age of IB at Southside. Visionary leadership applied our commitment to detracking to the program, allowing for unrivaled equity and access. We became a model of curiosity for districts across the region, hosting visiting educators looking to raise expectations while improving performance in their own school systems. Somewhere along the way, we lost sight of our specialness. Perhaps we took it for granted or were slow to respond to forces beyond our control. Today, some dismiss the IB as a one-size-fits-all monolith. In reality, it is rich in student choice. A student can pursue the full diploma or be a certificate candidate in as many or as few courses as they choose. Even within the diploma, there are multiple paths, different math levels, 5 elective possibilities, or the ability to double up in the sciences or take businesses to fit their specific goals. Holding on to tradition for tradition's sake is pointless. But protecting it because it aligns with our values is purposeful. The IB is educationally holistic, emphasizing critical thinking, research, and long-term writing. While colleges view both IB and AP as indicators of rigor, the IB is uniquely designed to prepare students for the interdisciplinary thinking required in higher education. For 43 years, Southside has been an IB school that's part of our identity. This history should be a source of pride, not a mere line item to eliminate. I hope to return in 7 years to celebrate our 50th IB graduating class, a half-century of excellence and equity. That is a milestone that this district deserves.
Thank you, Mr. Gamache.
Hi, my name is Mary Beth Joyce, 60 Berkshire. I submitted my petition today to be a candidate for the upcoming BOE election. And I don't want to bring us back to the budget too much, but since we now know that this budget is what we will be voting on, I wanted to make two comments on that. The first is that hopefully it will pass. I want to make sure that everyone knows that it's not done yet. The budget process, once that passes, we really should flip to looking at the 5-year plan. I know that was brought up in the strategic plan that was presented by the board last year. It's just hard to know without doing that process of looking forward 5 years, whether this is actually sufficient, what next year looks like. And I know that like nobody in this room wants to be back here having the same discussion next year. I also have heard a lot of different people in the community saying they want to vote the budget down because we spend too much every year. There's another contingent that may choose to vote no because they don't like the reductions. And I would really hope that you could give some color to what that process looks like if the budget isn't passed, because from my understanding, it would be a very painful process that would actually take some of the control away from the board. So I'm hoping you can just speak to that a little bit so people know what, if they're voting it down, what that means.
Sure, yeah. Ms. Riak, do you want to walk us through that? Thank you.
So if the budget fails, the board has the option to put the budget out again for vote. They can put the same budget out, they can adjust it, but they have the option to do that again, and there'd be a second vote in June. If the second vote fails, you go right on to contingency budget. If they choose not to put the budget out for vote again, you just adopt a contingency budget. A contingency budget means your tax levy has to stay exactly the same as the year prior. So there's no increase, which means our revenue in our budget will go down by that 2.2 million or 2.06%. There are certain things that you cannot use any of the funds for. So you can't have any equipment purchases. We reduced a lot of equipment, but we definitely have equipment in the budget. You're not allowed to have any equipment. You're not allowed to have capital projects. Your administrative component percentage has to stay the same as it was before, but it typically will when you remove those items anyway. At the budget hearing, I will review the contingency budget as well. Usually I just go over what that means and what the changes are. More of the downside of a contingency budget in the short term, most of what you'll see removed is capital and equipment. But what happens is, remember, your tax levy, it starts where your last year's tax levy was. So that decrease actually affects you in perpetuity because you will never get that money back, and every year thereafter is starting at a lower point. So it actually hurts you a lot more in future years than it does in that first year, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Jeff Greenfield, you know who I am, but you don't want to know it. I understand. New question. You mentioned the HVAC system in the auditorium. What state are we in, and what's the budget, below budget? What was the bid? I never heard what the final number was on that.
Ms. Riak, thank you.
Yeah, it came in well under budget. So we did get
What number?
grants for it. So we're at just over 300,000. We had thought it would be at 450,000. It's still not complete, but we expect the bid to come in at just over 300,000 instead of 450.
Good. So we have some money to well spend on my suggestion that I made years ago and was promised it was going to be done, and I made it again when you came to the moment of crisis on the existing system. For the money we're spending, we should duct work into the gymnasium. And please look into that. Just don't shake heads here. I think it's a very positive
We
thing.
did look into it.
So we are doing it?
It was a much, much higher cost, so it can be done at a later time, but we wouldn't have been able to do it with the
No,
$450,000.
at a later date, yes.
Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do it with the $450,000 based on the cost we were getting to expand it into the gym. It was over, I think the lowest price we got was over $800,000 for the whole project.
Really?
So, yes.
Okay. Next, I'm going to give the attorney a chance to give me an answer. I know we can't discuss pending litigation. I understand that. I don't want to be admonished on that. And I foiled unsuccessfully, and I'm going to give up on that, results of litigation. But how many, not the dollar amounts, not the people, but a number of pending litigations do we have in this district?
Mr. Miller, can you answer? Thank you.
You only have one pending litigation that's in court that was just filed about a month ago. and we're filing a motion to dismiss it.
I think that's the one I got a copy of.
Yeah.
So all other prior litigation is, they're all settled?
Yeah, you have one administrative charge at the EEOC that's not public at this point. The lawsuit is public, but not this. But that's really it.
Okay. I think I heard people say we need transparency and full disclosure, and I agree. I'm here, and I've been here all these years. I'm passionate about education of our youth. I served 23 years proudly at Malloy University as a minority trustee, holding the Jewish seat there, but holding and learning Catholic values from my teachers, the sisters on the board, and a lot about education and Catholic education. I'm passionate about the Rockville Center Schools where I graduated, where my kids graduated, and I'm not leaving for Florida. I can't live there full-time, so you're stuck with me as long as you're here for many years to come. And I want to see you restore the confidence of the community. You lost the confidence of the community. And you have to take steps to include the community starting now, or starting right after the budget season. I proposed the Citizens Budget Committee, and I hope the new school board would do something along those lines. I just returned from what I call Disneyland on the Hudson, so Albany. I'm taking responsibility for the budget delay, and I was trying to do something about it. This is the first year the budget delay is caused by an insurance issue. I'm 50 years, I know something about insurance issues. We're trying to do something terrible, lower insurance costs to all the consumers in the state of New York. And the governor, to her credit, has proposed items, and the legislature, we tried, I spent 2 days there, at least it wasn't in the winter, trying to educate them on the subject, but I don't have much hope, and they may give up on it, and you may end up with a budget in the next week to 10 days, but without necessary insurance reforms.
Thank you.
Krista Durego, 11 Essex Lane. I first want to acknowledge all of the questions and the scrutiny that you've been under. The community is looking to you in a very difficult moment, and the responsibility is not a small one. I also want to say that I appreciate, via SEP, all the meetings that you've had with us, the information that you provided, and all the time that you spent to try to sort through the questions that we've had. With that, though, I also want to say that through all of the questions that we hear from the community, I do feel that at this point, there's no one single solution that's going to fix this challenge overnight. There's not a silver bullet. We're in a difficult situation, one that I believe has been shaped over time by long-term planning challenges and perhaps insufficient year-to-year financial forecasting. At the same time, we have to be reminded of the broader economic environment. It exists. Inflation, rising insurance costs, increasing expenses affect not only school districts, but it affects businesses and families as well. But it is precisely in those times that these strong forecasting and disciplined planning and financial safeguards matter most, where gaps in planning have contributed to the strain that we're experiencing now. The district will stabilize, I believe that, but it will take several years of disciplined financial recovery. And the difficult truth is that this process will not come without significant, and in some cases irreversible, consequences. Those consequences may include the loss, and will include the loss of exceptional teachers, dedicated teaching assistants. They include the loss of opportunities that students depend on, not just for academics, but for personal growth, life skills. The result is a diminished student experience, and while we may continue to meet legal requirements, I am concerned the level of excellence that our community expects and value may not be sustained. Our students will feel the most. Some will struggle, some will regress, and some will do so quietly, without immediate recognition, until it becomes harder to intervene and provide support. It's especially critical for our special education students among our most vulnerable. While legal mandates will be met, we must ask whether we will consistently be able to meet best practices, particularly when it comes to appropriate placement determination, least restrictive environment, which is a core principle under IDEA. While some have confidence that the students will continue to thrive, and the high-achieving students will most definitely do so, it's important to remember our history. I've sat in this room for many years. I outdate some of you. Jeff? Well, yeah. While there was no full-day ICT, and the day when IB was required for all, regardless of the impact, regardless of the cost, and those decisions had real consequences, particularly I speak of the ones on the students' mental health. We can't afford to forget that. The toll it took on some students was heartbreaking, and it's not a path that we can revisit. I understand no one wants to move to contingency budget. We all understand the consequences. However, if you move forward with this budget, future planning, I implore you to make decisions grounded not only on fiscal responsibility, but on clear, thoughtful, and realistic understanding of their impact on our teachers, on our teaching assistants, on our families, and most importantly, on our students, especially those who rely on stability, consistency, and meaningful support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Burgee, 15 Hendrickson Avenue. I had spent all afternoon writing up something to say to you, and I just scrapped it. After what Krista just said, ditto, that's pretty much what I had to say. But I wanted to add one thing. I wanted to ask of you something. There's so much being taken away, and we are understanding of why we are, not why we are here, but what we need to do moving forward. One of the big changes is in our ICT program, and it breaks my heart because we worked very hard to put in an ICT program just a few years ago. That was so much better than we ever had. It was far exceeding any expectations that I would have had for these kids. My kids didn't have it, but I was so happy we had it now. So now we're changing the system. We have a new model, and I understand that. I'm asking if we can please look at the fact that New York State allows 12 children with IEPs to be in an ICT classroom, correct? I'm asking if we can keep that number down, if we could maybe write a policy, or if we are guaranteed that we are not going to have 12 IEPs in an ICT classroom. Is it something that the board and the administration will consider? And if there is, maybe 8 could be our number, where if there is, we'll open another section. I know we're planning on 2 for next year, but if we have more than 16 kids, can we open a 3rd section? It would make a huge difference. I'm seeing you shake your
I'm
heads.
sure it's hard to commit to a solid number just because there's so many variables in terms of section. I don't want to speak for administration, but I would be hesitant to set a number in a board policy if that's what you're asking us to look at for a board policy. We can look at practice, and I can certainly allow administration to chime
I think
in.
there's enough people here to say to me that you're not gonna go to 12, and that we'll try to stay under 8.
Well, I'll ask Ms. Dalton to talk specifically about the numbers, but in our programming, when we were meeting, we don't have any classes that are near 12 at this
Right,
point. So
and
we're
some
not
are very
projecting
low.
to.
Right.
So, you know, we're not projecting to at all. I think our highest number is 8, 7
Correct.
in an ICT section. Most of our sections are lower than that, particularly on some of our elementary schools. So we have anywhere from 2 or 3 students in an ICT section, all the way up to about 7 or 8. So
Right.
that's generally speaking where we have our enrollment. Now, obviously, I have no idea what might happen over the summer in terms of enrollment or different needs, or we're still in the middle of our annual review season. So we still have some changes that could happen, but as of right now, these are what our projections are.
He's looking at you.
So yes, so in all of my review with all of our teams and knowing our students, there are no sections that are close to 12.
Now, right.
Projected for
Okay.
next year.
Okay.
Okay? Because I understand that, yes, it is a shift to go from the number of sections we had to, and we have every year, we've always looked at the number of student needs and created sections based on that. That is why if you look at our elementary classes, 5th grade truly is the only grade that there is a section in every building. And then every year after that, there's 3 to 4 sections based on the student needs.
Right.
Okay, so based on that, my commitment to looking at what our kids need is we knew 2 sections could suffice, and if we get an uptick, we would consider, that's why there are contingencies in the budget, we would consider opening additional classes. But when you look systemically at both elementary, middle, and high school, when we looked at those adjustments, we were going from sections of anywhere, like Mr. Gavin said, from some are as small as 2 to anywhere upwards of 7, to now maintaining at the elementary 5 to 8 students, at the middle school approximately 8 students a section, where now there are about 6 students a section, and same for the high school, where I have sections at about 5, now next year sections at about 8. Okay, so well beneath the 12, and it isn't my goal to now create, as a person who spent 20 years in the classroom at both special class and ICT, I know what it is to teach every year a special class 12 with 12 students in it, or an ICT class with 12 students in it, because that was my experience. I understand the excellence for which we strive for in this district, and I'm committed to maintaining that with us.
Okay. And I also wanted to just thank you for saying that if we do get state money, that you are first priority putting TAs on that list to hire back. Oh God, there was one more thing. TAs. I'm sure it'll wait. I'll talk to you another day.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mary Carmen. I'm at 15 Demont Avenue. I wasn't anticipating to speak, but I do want to ask very specific questions regarding the TA loss at the elementary level. I wanted to express how important at the elementary level TAs are. I know other people have. I can say firsthand how they go beyond just providing an educational support, but they become an additional human being that kids who are developing, just understanding what it is to be in a school circumstance, how to do day-to-day reasoning and resolving issues. And I know here there is a gem of a human being that has made such an impact on my son's life. And to think that anyone that could provide that kind of impact for my incoming kindergarten daughter wouldn't be there is devastating. So what I would love to know, in understanding how the changes will be for reading for kids coming into kindergarten, do we have a plan understanding how many kids are placed in certain groups of reading levels to see how many kids in previous years have increased at a certain level, to know if the lack of this additional support, the additional hands in the small group reading is having a negative impact in outcomes. I would love to be able to understand that. Also understanding for, and forgive me because I don't know the right acronyms, but for the world languages, to know the progression of the understanding of these kids. If it's only going to be once a sequence, the decline, is there a way that we can get an understanding of how much of a negative impact that is having on their ability to retain the things that we've noticed year over year the kids of these grades have been able to do with that level of support? Getting this kind of evidence-based understanding years over year will help think about the decisions we're making right now to know the rootedness in if that is actually really very demonstrably negatively impacting our youth, because the building blocks of what they're having that young in something as core as reading is, to think that that was one of the things that was taken away is really heartbreaking to me. I very much understand things are hard decisions, but that is such a core and fundamental thing. So I would love to have some way to track these things so that if we see this decline, we can try and make adjustments. That's all I have to say.
So thank you for the comment. I just want to let you know that we're working with the teachers in terms of the FLES program. We had a meeting with the FLES teachers to talk about different ways to implement it and what their concerns were and what our administrators' concerns were. And we're trying to balance the equity of program in terms of how potential reductions would address or impact students in all age levels with the instructional best practices. So sometimes those two things are at odds at the same time. What do I mean by that? Is that if I reduce, best instructional practice might say 2 times a week is the best thing to do. So in order for us to do that, we might only be able to provide it for grades 3, 4, 5 at the elementary level. Whereas one time a week would allow an introduction to our K-1, 2 students. And we also want to remember, too, that the reduction in this particular case would impact the K-1, 2 students more than it would the 3, 5. So we're trying to provide a balance between equity and instructional models. So that's number one. Number two, in terms of reading data, I would be happy to go back and get some more data about what our historical data looks like, and then compare it to this year, and then be able to sit down with you as we go through the next year.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve items for action O1 through R11?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Our next meeting is April 28th.